evening, you are watching News in English. I am Sana Tumanyan. November 8, a date etched in the dusty pages of history, marking the birth of the author behind one of literature's most celebrated works. Margaret Mitchell, author of Gone with the Wind, was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and who hasn't been captivated by the silver screen magic of Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh in the iconic film. On another note entirely, November 8 is also imprinted in the U.S. history by a significant political event. Democratic politician John Kennedy was narrowly elected president of the United States. And one might ask, was Marilyn Monroe most often linked with? But this news bulletin has a different tale to tell. First, a quick announcement. Aliyev can't find Sevan on Tsarist maps in new Azerbaijani rhetoric. Arbeli Forum in review. Pashinyan and Mirzoyan's discussion swings from Sevan to Trump's trip. Armenia receives grain shipments from Kazakhstan and Russia through Azerbaijan. Armen Grigoryan meets with Sergei Shoigu for the first time in 3 years. Visa liberalization in Armenia moves closer to reality with the official handover of the action plan. Where is Azerbaijan on historic maps? Years ago, even that country's president searched for it in surprise. Today, it's southwest of the Caucasus Mountains, but when the ancient maps Aliyev saw were created, there was no Azerbaijan nor so-called Azerbaijanis or Caucasian Tatars, as they were known in recent centuries. Ancient texts from Herodotus to Xenophon and Strabo provide rich accounts of Armenia's presence, geography, and culture within the Achaemenid Empire and beyond. Today, Aliyev has chosen to rewrite history, renaming our lake, our sea, Sevan as Goicha, on maps in his mind. He's also stated that they will return to Armenia in cars, not tanks, calling it a return to a historical homeland. This rhetoric, including chants of Erivan, raises questions. While it's unclear when our pink city entered the Azerbaijani leader's mind, media literacy rather than emotional responses can be a powerful tool against such propaganda.
Here is an 8th century BCE Urartian map, and this is Lake Sevan, or Siwan. And how do we know this from this inscription left by Rusa I? And this is a map published in 1832 after the journey of cartographer Frédéric Dubois de Montpère, where Sevan is also written. And Ilham Aliyev tries to find counter-arguments to this firm and undeniable reality by digging up and citing old Russian imperial maps from the early 20th century.
Old Russian imperial maps from the early 20th century clearly show that almost all place names in the area, all regions of today's Armenia, have Azerbaijani origins. There is no Lake Sevan, there is Goicha.
Aliyev has demands from everyone in our region. According to the historian, Azerbaijan has adopted an aggressive and eccentric policy to exist.
Azerbaijan has adopted an aggressive strategy for its existence and expansion at the expense of neighboring states, and not only Armenia. This includes claims on the Islamic Republic of Iran, on Georgia, not to mention Armenia, and even on Turkey.
Azerbaijan expert Angela Elibegova notes that there is nothing surprising in Aliyev's strategy.
Instead of Artsakh, they first used the name Nagorno-Karabakh, and then shortened it even further to simply Karabakh. And by and large, there is nothing surprising here, right? Yes, this is part of the overall strategy.
The battle for Sevan is in progress.
In 921, there was the famous Battle of Sevan, known in historiography, about which the contemporary Catholicos Hovhannes Draskonakrtsi writes, King Ashot crushed the Arabs on the shore of Gegarkuni Sea. Movsis Kagankatvatsi writes about the same battle as having taken place on the shore of Gigama Sea. The 10th century Arab author Al-Masadi writes, the king of Armenia defeated the Muslims near the Sea of Buzand. Al-Yaqubi calls it Al-Jazira, meaning lake with an island, and the Greek historian Constantine Porphyrogonentos calls it Lake Gegam.
To whom are we trying to prove or convince that this is Armenia? Do we really need to prove to anyone, to convince anyone, that this is Armenia? This has been proven not only by our own history, but also by the history of the empires of their own time.
In recent years, Azerbaijan has launched a campaign dedicated to the so-called Western Azerbaijan Initiative, by which Baku means not its own territory, but a significant part or the entire territory of Armenia. OC Media revealed that Azerbaijani presidential administration coordinated and financed the international dissemination of the Western Azerbaijan narrative, preparing the ground for claims to Armenian territories under the guise of humanitarianism.
The campaign is presented as a humanitarian effort to support the safe and dignified return of Azerbaijanis displaced from Armenia during the collapse of the Soviet Union. However, over time, the so-called Western Azerbaijan narrative has turned into a state-guided communication strategy that Baku regularly uses as a propaganda tool.
By the way, the term Western Azerbaijan is not found in any medieval or modern maps or documents, not even in maps printed at the twilight of the Russian Empire. It is a politically and newly created formulation invented by the Azerbaijani authorities.
When the doors opened in 2122 for the official so-called Western Azerbaijan community, Ilham Aliyev himself was present at the opening of its building. He gave a long, substantive speech, presenting this entire concept as a state program for the decades to come.
According to experts, Azerbaijan has been dripping this propaganda into the ears of not only Armenians, but also the entire world for years. But, they say, it is time to change positions, not to defend, but to take the initiative into our own hands. Finally, we have millennia of history and undeniable facts behind us. Monica Hyroyan, ReOpen Media.
By the way, after the government session, the Prime Minister once again addressed the topic of Lake Sevan. Let's hear the fresh response right now.
Մեր լրագրողները շատ հետաքրքիր է։ Օրինակ ոչ մեկ չի գնաց այդ քարտեզը հանի։
It's very interesting with our journalists. For example, not a single one has gone to pull out that map and take a look to see what it's about. Does the map exist or not? And if our journalists were to pull out that map, they would see, for example, that however unfavorable it might be for Armenia from that perspective, it could, if desired, be twice as unfavorable for Azerbaijan. Because, for example, it might turn out that on that map there is an Armenia, but no Azerbaijan. And how are we to interpret that? That is why I say it is a pointless exercise. Not to mention, if we go by Tsarist maps, and why only Tsarist? Before that, there was Sultanate, Shahdom, Khanate, and Caliphate maps. On those maps, there is no Armenia. I mean, Armenia exists, but not as there is no Republic of Armenia, nor is there a Republic of Azerbaijan. Regarding the map that is being referenced, I'm telling you, it is written very clearly, Armenia in the place of today's Armenia, but in the place of Azerbaijan, the word Azerbaijan is not written.
This week, the spotlight was on a multinational forum, drawing experts from Azerbaijan and Turkey. Armenia's Prime Minister also addressed the gathering. Peacemakers from Iran, Georgia, France, and India joined the discussions, all focused on stability in our region. The conference offered a prime opportunity for journalists to hear Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's take on the Sevan-Gocha dilemma. The Armenian Speaker of Parliament also noted these remarks were for a domestic audience. Ruben Rubinyan, however, responded more directly, stating that if we look back on the map, Azerbaijan wouldn't even be found.
If we go back far enough, at a certain point we indeed won't see the name Sevan on old maps. Instead, we will see the Gegama Sea or the Sea of Gegarkunik, and we won't see Azerbaijan. But there is no point in going back at all. We must move forward. That is the entire point of the August 8 declaration.
Turning to the two-day forum, here is a video summary of the first day.
The name Basargechar is heard in Azerbaijan as much as the name Artsakh is heard in Armenia. This is how Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan responded to Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev during the international conference Orbeli Forum, Building Peace and Multilateral Cooperation, looking at the delegates from 17 countries, including neighboring Azerbaijan, sitting opposite him. According to Pashinyan, sometimes in Armenia and Azerbaijan, people perceive and see only one part of history, considering the part that benefits them to be legitimate and the part that benefits the other side to be illegitimate.
What you said about the president of Azerbaijan does not express the whole picture, because the president of Azerbaijan said that if we look at the Tsarist maps, there is no Lake Sevan there. There is another some name. You understand why it is an awkward situation. Because now, if I say that the president of Azerbaijan did not say that the name of Lake Sevan is Goycha, but said if we look at the maps of Tsarist Russia, there is no Lake Sevan there, it is absurd in that before answering your question, I have to clarify what the president of Azerbaijan said.
Prime Minister Pashinyan, in essence, responded in Aliyev's language to the claims that, for example, there is no Sevan but Goicha, and Yerevan, or as he calls it, Yerevan, is an Azerbaijani city, at some point gifted to Armenia.
At
the beginning of the 20th century, old Russian imperial maps clearly show that almost all place names in today's Armenia are of Azerbaijani origin. There is no Lake Sevan, but there is Lake Goicha. We did not create these maps. They were compiled by Tsarist Russia, which resettled Karabakh with Armenians from Iran and eastern Anatolia to change the ethnic composition. These maps reflect historical truth.
Nikol Pashinyan emphasized that one should be careful with history.
Historical social psychology is not something that you pull a switch and turn off. We must be able to distinguish the past from the future, and the future is today. The future is even 2024. We have been living in the future for 2 years now.
It is noteworthy that Azerbaijani experts also participated in this event, one of whom, by the way, is visiting Armenia for the second time. Referring to the term Zangezur corridor, Azerbaijani expert Zaur Shariyev noted that for Azerbaijan it is a broader concept and does not only refer to trip.
Unlike in Armenia, there is no negative annotation when we use the corridor terminology. So I think that Armenia has a different, people are treating the corridor wording differently. In Azerbaijan it's different.
We reminded the experts about Ilham Aliyev's recent statements that there is no Lake Sevan but Goicha, and asked whether this discourse hinders the peace process. The Azerbaijani experts avoided a direct answer.
I think we should address the question to the Azerbaijani officials. But if you ask an expert opinion from our side, I would suggest we all check the Washington Declaration between the two countries, which is about mutual recognition of territorial integrity and inviolability of borders.
To reopen media's question about what red lines in the Azerbaijani internal societal segment are difficult to work with, even for the Azerbaijani leadership, in the context of Aliyev's statements, and what is being done in this direction, Azerbaijani experts replied that the work is difficult.
There is strong public opinion, and not everything goes top-down. And the government also has to deal with the public opinion, as my colleague Zaur has already mentioned. And you can also actually check this on social media, Facebook, YouTube, different comments of Azerbaijani users, that not everyone may be happy about reconciliation, because for many, the traumas, the wounds are still fresh. Yes, the Washington meeting injected a lot of optimism and boosted these interesting dynamics between the two countries, but we also have to prepare the societies with our behavior, with our actions, with our statements. I think for me personally, peace and reconciliation is not the end goal, it's a journey. And we have to learn during this journey, and we have to educate.
Although the word peace was heard most often during the forum, let's remember that only 12 years ago, in one of his speeches, Aliyev declared that he would not tolerate the existence of a second Armenian state, as he puts it, on his lands. Today, when he talks about Armenian territories allegedly being Azerbaijani, can we legitimately fear that Azerbaijan will again resort to the iron fist as a means to realize those ambitions? This question, unfortunately, we could not address to Nikol Pashinyan and remains open for those who wish to answer. Diana Karapetian, ReOpen Media.
At the Orbeli Forum Building Peace and Multilateral Cooperation, Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan addressed the experts from 17 countries. He responded to Aliyev's Sevan Goicha claims, acknowledging they don't feed the peace narrative. However, Mirzoyan expressed great optimism about relations with Turkey, expecting tangible results soon. He noted that despite decades of closed borders, people visited each other and significant trade occurred via third countries. Flights have continued and are set to increase between Yerevan, Gyumri, and Turkish cities like Istanbul and possibly Ankara. Turkish experts are divided. Some see a beneficial deal, while others view it as a political bluff. Sevan Nishanyan, a prominent Armenian intellectual who escaped Turkish prison years ago, countered this dilemma with a question during an interview with ReOpen. Do you believe in a peaceful life between a wolf and a lamb? Regarding American presence, Mirzoyan stated it's now new, with several companies already having American involvement. He welcomed the U.S. interest in it as both an economic and political benefit. TRIP was also on the agenda, much like the Sevan topic. Mirzoyan once again addressed the term corridor, emphasizing that the issue is what different parties understand by it. He clarified that in Armenia they have a north-south road corridor. However, he urged against using the term corridor for the infrastructure in southern Armenia because in past negotiations, various countries expressed desires for security or military presence along or control over such infrastructure. Mirzoyan highlighted that the official agreed upon name for this infrastructure signed by Prime Minister Pashinyan, President Aliyev and President Trump is TRIP. This is what will be in southern Armenia, he stated, addressing a Turkish journalist who had used the term corridor when referring to TRIP.
The countries of the South Caucasus are condemned to cooperation. Foreign Minister Arat Mirzoyan stated this during a forum dedicated to peace, which also included Turkish and Azerbaijani delegates. According to him, the long-term guarantee for the implementation of the peace agreement between Yerevan and Baku is mutual benefit, not the intervention of third countries.
It is this mutual benefit that will give longevity to the agreement that will be signed, to the declaration that was signed, to the delimitation process.
The minister finds it difficult to say when this section of the Trump Road passing through Armenia will be built, but he emphasizes that even today they are discussing technical issues with the American side. And how does the destructive rhetoric constantly coming from Baku fit into the peace agenda, particularly Aliyev's recent statement regarding the name of Lake Sevan?
It doesn't fit, but with one clarification. I don't want to advocate for anyone, but the formulation was, there is no Sevan in Tsarist maps, there is Goycha. I don't think Aliyev is saying that today there is no Sevan, there is Goycha. But still, it is not the most constructive formulation. We would not really say that this fits into the peace narrative. I can also say that there are many Tsarist-era maps where Sevan exists.
Referring to relations with Turkey, Mirzoyan says there is a daily dialogue, and the ultimate goal of that dialogue is the opening of borders and the establishment of diplomatic relations.
We will have tangible results in this direction in the near future. Of course, part of them is the opening of the Gyumri-Kars Railway.
Former Turkish Member of Parliament Garo Paylan also spoke about the opening of the Armenian-Turkish border. He expressed hope that we will see positive developments in January-February 2025.
Of course, the opening in January will first be for citizens of third countries, and then I hope that within a few months, citizens of Turkey and Armenia will also be able to cross the Armenian-Turkish border.
The Turkish expert, who is also a journalist, evaluates the opening of the border positively, saying that people in Turkey are thirsty for peace, but nevertheless, one should not look at reality through rose-colored glasses.
As a journalist, I am also after this question, so I do not know that. As a commentator, I always say that it is now that Turkey and Armenia should open their border not only to third-party nationals, but it is my belief that Turkey and Armenia should open their borders immediately to their respective populations. But this, me saying as a journalist and as a commentator, I am not so sure whether the Turkish government is at that stage, because Turkey and Azerbaijan have very close relations.
Garo Paylan also says that, if in the past, Armenian-Azerbaijani relations hindered relations with Turkey, now the two will move forward together.
I believe that the coming months will be decisive for the development of Armenian-Azerbaijani and Armenian-Turkish relations. If Western countries also help and make efforts to convince Turkey and Azerbaijan, I believe we will be able to move forward.
To the question of how we are going to develop relations with Turkey when that country has not yet recognized the Armenian genocide, Paylan says that we must now build relations and a future with Turkey, and only after that will it be possible to talk about the past. Mary Danielian, ReOpen Media.
Amidst the rhetoric, the Sevan-Goychal Lake debate and the visit of Turkish and Azerbaijani experts to Armenia, a significant event unfolded. For the first time in over 3 decades, a Russian wheat train arrived in Armenia via Azerbaijan. The initial shipment, 15 wagons carrying over 1,000 tons of grain, passed through Georgia and reached Armenia station. Russia's Ministry of Transport confirmed plans to deliver another 132 wagons of wheat to Armenia via this route by January 2026. The Armenian government hails this as a crucial step toward restoring regional communications and building trust. According to Economy Minister Gevorg Papoyan, this new logistics route offers a practical alternative to the problematic Upper Lars land road, which has long posed challenges for Armenian cargo. In related news, the much discussed first shipment on Kazakh wheat has already reached Armenia via Azerbaijan. Azerbaijani media also shared video reports on this development. Armenian Deputy Speaker of Parliament Ruben Rubinyan also commented, noting, "This means that for the first time since the early 90s, not only from Kazakhstan but also from the Russian Federation, something is being imported to Armenia by railway through the territory of Azerbaijan. This is peace. This is moving forward," he stated.
A train loaded with Russian wheat has arrived in Armenia via Azerbaijan. To greet the cargo, Minister of Economy Gevorg Papoyan arrived at Armenia station.
A historic event took place a few minutes ago. For the first time, after an almost 3.5-decade break, cargo arrived in the Republic of Armenia by railway through Azerbaijan's territory, specifically 15 freight cars. 1,000 tons of wheat of Russian origin, arrived in the Republic of Armenia, having passed through the territories of Azerbaijan and Georgia by railway.
The Russian Ministry of Transport confirmed that this is not a one-time deal. An additional 132 wagons of wheat are planned to be delivered to Armenia via this route by January 2026. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Overchuk also reacted to the event.
The new road strengthens Russia's transport connection with the countries of the region, increases the accessibility of Armenian markets for goods coming from other member states of the Eurasian Economic Union, and improves the accessibility of that union's markets for Armenian producers. It is symbolic that the first cargo passing through this route was Russian grain, one of the most important symbols of life and creation, which once again emphasizes the general aspiration to establish peace in the South Caucasus, to transition from conflict to cooperation.
The Prime Minister also addressed the event at the highest level. He viewed this development not only from a logistical, but also a strategic perspective, linking it to regional processes.
We understand, don't we, how many trucks 130 wagons represent? I welcome and want to welcome that this fully corresponds to our ideas about developments after August 8th. This is merely a political card given to Nikol Pashinyan, and consequently, taking all this into account, we can, of course, talk and discuss the economic part, but there are so many gaps there. People don't publish numbers. They don't take into account that Kazakhstan itself is part of the Turkic world, a Turkic-speaking state, completely under Turkey's influence.
Critics argue that this process cannot be viewed purely within an economic logic.
Any economic relationship has a political context. When they recognized Artsakh as part of Azerbaijan and lost those territories as a result of their governance, for example, they should be honest and say how much wheat and at what price used to come to Armenia from those territories, which is not happening now.
The railway passes through Azerbaijan's territory, then Georgia, and from there to Armenia. In an interview with public television, Papoyan noted the economic advantages of this new logistical route as an alternative to the Upper Lars Highway, which is both expensive and often problematic due to traffic jams and other issues.
Essentially, this is Russian wheat that came from Russia to Azerbaijan, and since Armenia and Azerbaijan currently do not have direct railway communication, it went to Georgia and from Georgia to Armenia. When the trip road opens, meaning we have communication through Megri, then in that case, it would be Russia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, again Azerbaijan, because Nakhichevan comes, and then again Armenia.
The Economist notes that as long as political issues between the two states are not resolved, economic relations can serve as a tool for political manipulation.
Until political issues between the two states are resolved, economic ones usually serve as short-term and certain political manipulative tools. Clear examples are the Russian-Ukrainian war, and in that context, for example, they temporarily allowed Ukrainian wheat to be exported through Turkey's mediation, right?
The governance specialist also has concerns about the transparency of information.
We don't even know who the importer of the grain is, do we? Is it the state or a private organization? That is, it is not excluded that they might take another, for example, populist and manipulative step and, for instance, subsidize it from the state budget, artificially lower its price and show that, look, this was cheaper than what came before. That is, there are 1,001 things.
Minister Papoyan also stated that Kazakh wheat would arrive via the same route soon. However, when asked whether all this would lead to a decrease in the price of bread, the minister did not give a definitive answer.
Why I will not say that the price will unequivocally decrease by this percentage is because it depends on various circumstances. The cost of wheat is only one part of the price of bread. There's electricity, transportation, logistics, exchange rates, and so on. There are many circumstances. These logistics issues must first, I say, security issues, political issues, all these risks, they all turn into costs in any case. And here, as I already said, in my conviction, this has a political context.
While the first batch is still being unloaded, the next train with Kazakh wheat is already on its way, making this route a continuous reality. And with that, the debate on the combination of economic benefit and political manipulation also continues. Anna Harutyunyan, ReOpen Media.
Shifting from wit to political dialogue, high-level meetings have been ongoing. For the first time in 3 years, the secretaries of the Security Councils of Russia and Armenia met in Moscow. Following a CIS Security Council meeting, Sergei Shoigu and Armen Grigoryan discussed various issues. Shoigu stated that the Trump Street and the North-South Transport Corridor would not compete. According to the Russian official, both routes are not only viable but necessary to connect Azerbaijan with its regions and create transport corridors for trade between countries. Earlier on November 3rd, during a working visit to Brussels, Armenian Security Council Secretary Armen Grigoryan met with Simon Murdiu, diplomatic advisor to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. During the discussion, Grigoryan presented Armenia's vision for institutionalizing peace and the importance of the Trump Street for International Peace and Prosperity project, part of the Crossroads of Peace project. This was framed within the context of unblocking regional communications and the broad economic opportunities it offers. The European Union is investing €5 million to strengthen nuclear safety in Armenia. This funding will target two main areas: bolstering the safety of the Armenian nuclear power plant and supporting the expert teams of Armenia's Nuclear Safety Regulatory Committee and the Nuclear and Radiation Safety Scientific and Technical Center. In more positive news, Deputy Prime Minister Mehmet Grigoryan received a delegation led by Jonas Lutcher, Deputy Director General of the European Commission's Directorate General for Migration and Home Affairs. Minister of Internal Affairs Arpine Sargsyan and EU Ambassador to Armenia Vasilis Margos were also present. Both sides underscored the successes achieved within the visa liberalization dialogue, which began last year. As a result, the Visa Liberalization Action Plan was formally handed over to the Armenian government. Deputy Prime Minister Grigoryan participated in the official handover of the Visa Liberalization Action Plan from Jonas Lutcher to Armenia's chief negotiator on visa liberalization issues, Minister of Internal Affairs Arpine Sargsyan. Minister Sargsyan acknowledged the document as a crucial phase in the partnership between Armenia and the European Union, noting the widespread public attention and expectations it has generated. The Armenian side reaffirmed its commitment to implementing the plan's measures with the ultimate goal of ensuring dignified, safe, and easy travel opportunities to the European Union for Armenian citizens. Meanwhile, as Georgia attempts to normalize relations with Russia, the European Union is accusing Tbilisi of unprecedented backsliding on democratic reforms. Tbilisi has responded with counter-accusations. The Georgian government views the EU stance as unfair, leading to a significant crisis in relations between Tbilisi and Brussels. This tension has escalated to the point where Georgia has been deprived of its visa-free travel status to the EU.
The 2025 report on European Union enlargement has been published, subjecting Georgia to severe criticism due to the, quote, sharp deterioration of the situation in the country. Kaja Kallas, the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, stated that Georgia is the only country among the candidates for European Union membership that has recorded not only a setback, but also a, quote, significant setback on the path to membership. The EU ambassador to Georgia, Pavel Herchinsky, called the report catastrophic for Georgia's European aspirations, noting that over the past year, the country has moved away from the EU rather than closer. According to the ambassador, the sharp content of the report is due to the hostile rhetoric, disinformation, and conspiracy theories voiced by the Georgian authorities towards the European Union. In addition, legislative changes and systemic pressures have harmed civil society and media independence, while abuse of force by law enforcement has gone unpunished.
For me, as the EU ambassador, it is not easy to present this year's report. Unfortunately, the conclusions of the report are devastating for Georgia's European aspirations. The truth is that Georgia is much further from EU membership today than it was in 2023 when it was granted candidate status. The level of backsliding in the last year is absolutely unprecedented.
In response, Shalva Papushvili, a representative of the ruling Georgian Dream Party and Speaker of Parliament, made counter-accusations, claiming that in reality it is the governing institutions of the European Union that are experiencing a setback. Papushvili accused Brussels bureaucracy of, quote, hidden political agenda, arrogance, and disrespect towards countries that do not show blind obedience. According to Papushvili, the report is full of, quote, worn-out political accusations, lies, and deliberate harm, and Brussels' perceptions have nothing in common with the real Georgia.
The enlargement report on Georgia presented by the European Commission today is a good example of bureaucracy where worn-out political accusations, lies, hostile rhetoric, and deliberate harm are organically intertwined. This is Georgia as seen from the offices in Brussels, which has nothing in common with the real Georgia. We want to clearly state that as a result of such unfair, biased, anti-democratic, polarizing, and destructive attitude towards the country, if anyone is experiencing a setback, it is precisely the current governing institutions of the European Union.
The statement of the Georgian Foreign Ministry regarding the European Union's report also testifies to the deep crisis in relations between Tbilisi and Brussels. The Georgian government has chosen a strategy of counter-accusations.
The steps and statements taken by the European Union institutions towards Georgia are concerning, as they aim to influence Georgia's internal politics and contradict both the spirit of Georgia-EU relations and our common interests. We condemn all attempts aimed at using the issue of EU membership as a political tool, which harms the relations between Georgia and the European Union.
Anna Tandarian, ReOpen Media.
For our second segment, we shall transport ourselves to the vibrant streets of New York. We'll then lend an ear to Mr. Trump's rather enthusiastic commendations, though to be clear, they are not about the Big Apple itself. And finally, we'll have the distinct pleasure of making the acquaintance of a most newly minted knight. Armenia marks 34th independence anniversary with reception at the Meridian International Center. Trump on two powerful leaders. Who are they? American troops in Nigeria and a Muslim mayor in New York. David Beckham, women's eternal crush, steps out as a new knight and a suit from his wife's brand. Crossing the ocean to the United States, Armenia marked its 34th year of independence with a reception at the Meridian International Center on October 30th. The event drew high-ranking U.S. officials, accredited ambassadors, diplomatic corps, American business representatives, and members of the Armenian diaspora. Ambassador Narek Margarchan congratulated attendees, highlighting the historical significance of independence and showcasing the original 1991 on referendum ballot as a symbol of the nation's unified will. He also underscored the historical importance of the August 8 peace agreement mediated by President Donald Trump at the White House, referring to recent regional developments. Merchan thanked the U.S. administration for its consistent support, emphasizing the importance of deepening relations based on peace, democracy, and mutual respect. The cultural segment featured Mona Opera's reflections and dialogue by Armenian composer Shoshan Sargsyan. U.S. President Donald Trump, or as I call him, Dove of Peace, has declared a war between Russia and Ukraine to be Joe Biden's war, not his own. I inherited a stupid war. This war should never have happened. It never would have happened if I were president, Trump told CBS News. He then reiterated his familiar claims of ending conflicts, proudly stating he concluded 8 of 9 wars. Regarding the Israel-Hamas conflict, Trump described it as a difficult situation, but one that will be solved. In an interview with CBS News, U.S. President Donald Trump described Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping as strong and smart people who demand serious respect. They are both tough, they are both smart, they are both very strong leaders. You can't play with these people, Trump stated when asked who was more difficult to deal with. Trump also expressed interest in nuclear disarmament, saying he had discussed it with both leaders. We have to do something about denuclearization, he urged. He boasted that the U.S. possesses enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world 150 times over. Meanwhile, Nigeria is actively debating a recent threat from the U.S. President Donald Trump, who reportedly ordered preparations for potential military action in the country if it fails to stop the killing of Christians. Trump also threatened to hold all aid to the West African nation. While the Nigerian government is reportedly alarmed, significant parts of the country have fallen under the control of the Islamist group Boko Haram. The government is struggling to combat the group, highlighting the severe challenges it faces in asserting authority and protecting its population.
The Christian community in Nigeria is once again under attack, constantly being subjected to recent assaults. However, for the leaders of the local Christian community, the problem is not only the violence, but also the widespread impunity that follows. They claim that the authorities are unable or unwilling to hold the murderers accountable, which creates an atmosphere of fear and insecurity.
What do you do with the people that have been killed is our concern. Not denial. Nobody can deny. But most of the people that have been killed, up to today, we are still having the pains. But the issue of what do you do with the people that have killed those that are loved ones?
As a result of the atmosphere of impunity, armed groups brazenly attack churches, even during prayers. The stories of eyewitnesses to such attacks convey the horror that ordinary people experience.
All of a sudden, when the mass is about to end, we had a 2 gunshot near this side. So everybody began to run. So what everybody's wondering, what is happening? The things start, then everybody began to run.
According to American sources, 7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria this year, and tens of thousands have been displaced. U.S. President Trump's threats to use military force against the country and cut off financial aid, angered by the slaughter of Christians, have caused serious tensions in bilateral relations.
If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the United States will immediately stop all aid to Nigeria, and in all likelihood enter that disgraced country with its full military might to completely eradicate the Islamist terrorists who are carrying out these horrific atrocities. I hereby instruct our Department of Defense to prepare for possible operations. If we attack, it will be swift, merciless, and decisive, just as the terrorist bandits attack our dear Christians.
Nigeria agrees to accept U.S. military aid if its independence is respected. However, the situation is not simply a clash between Christians and Muslims. There are various problems in the country: Islamist terrorist groups that also affect Muslims, land disputes, and armed criminality. A complex situation has developed in Nigeria, divided into 4 parts, where numerous internal conflicts and state inaction have been compounded by the threat of external military intervention based on a simplistic and religious interpretation of the crisis. Currently, 50 conflicts are underway on the Black Continent, more than 36 of which are bloody. According to the International Institute for Armed Conflict and the Geneva Academy, Besides Nigeria, a fierce conflict that has claimed 20,000 lives this year alone continues in Sudan. 15,000 people have died in Congo, 2,000 people have fallen victim to the jihadist coup in Niger, and 4,000 in Burkina Faso. Battles continue in the Central African Republic, Somalia, Mozambique, Angola, and other countries. All these armed conflicts are not without external influential actors. The leaders in this matter are Russia, China, France, the USA, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. These countries compete for influence, resources, and military bases. They support parties by creating proxy conflicts. The main goals are resources, gold, uranium, rare earth metals, hydrocarbons, diamonds, increasing military influence, expelling each other's military personnel, and creating economic dependence. And all this in conditions of a disturbed geopolitical balance. David Genjoyan, ReOpen Media.
Passions are flaring in New York, the city I associate with Sinatra's music and Once Upon a Time in America, a place of magic where they say to go when you want to feel at the center of the world. This iconic city now has a new mayor. For the first time, the largest city in the U.S. has elected a Muslim mayor. The 34-year-old Democratic mayor, in a post-election rather than pre-election promise, vowed to fight against Republican Donald Trump. Trump, in turn, has threatened to cut off federal funding to New York.
Please welcome your Democratic nominee and our next governor, Mikey Sherrill!
The November 4th elections became the first nationwide evaluation of Donald Trump's presidency and ended with a crushing victory for the Democratic Party. This success was a vitally important boost for the Democrats, who had been losing ground. In Virginia, moderate Democrat Abigail Spanberger was elected governor, defeating Republican Winsome Sears. In her victory speech, Spanberger emphasized that Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship, highlighting the importance of unity. A similar success was recorded in New Jersey, where Democrat Mikey Sherrill defeated Republican Jack Ciattarelli, solidifying the Democrats' impressive string of victories.
It's a Democratic landslide. There's no other way to characterize this. It's a big margin, nearly a landslide margin in New Jersey. It is a landslide margin in Virginia. And the margin was so large that Abigail Spanberger was able to carry in her lieutenant governor candidate and even her scandal-tarred candidate for attorney general that most people had thought would probably lose in the end. He's won by 4 or 5 points.
However, the most dramatic event of the day took place in New York, where 34-year-old Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani won the mayoral election, completing his rise from state legislator to one of the country's most recognized Democratic figures. He was fighting against 67-year-old former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had left the Republican ranks after accusations of sexual harassment and ran as an independent candidate.
Donald Trump, his message was simple. He is not supporting me, Donald Trump. He said the day before he's not a fan. He opposes Zoran Mamdani, and he's saying that a vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani, which is true. The president is nothing if not pragmatic.
Mamdani's victory energized his young supporters in New York, who are striving for change.
We've been in New York for like 13 years, and this is the first mayor that I'm excited to see come to the city.
Mamdani's election as the first Muslim mayor of a major American city was not unequivocally accepted by Jews. Some of his positions have raised concerns in Israel and some Jewish communities around the world.
I'm extremely worried, is the truth. He is a person who is promulgating and advancing and supporting organizations that are calling for Israel's destruction. And that worries me, that saddens me, that dismays me. And even more than his own feelings is the fact that people in New York are supporting that.
In his victory speech, Mamdani addressed his supporters, promising a new beginning for the city's working class.
The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands.
Americans' moods were affected by the government shutdown. Due to disagreements between Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, the budget is not approved, and since October 1st, civil servants have not been receiving salaries and scientific centers are not being financed. The Democrats' impressive victory showed that voters are dissatisfied and want change. The election results are considered a serious blow to President Trump and his administration by American commentators. David Genjoyan, ReOpen Media.
Will smartphones ever be replaced? Imagine a world without your closest companion. No, not a person, but your phone, that device that knows everything about you. American entrepreneur Elon Musk predicts the end of the smartphone era by 2030, superseded by the dominance of artificial intelligence. He believes traditional devices will be replaced by AI-powered solutions. Musk asserts that operating systems and applications will vanish, supplanted by screen and voice-based AI devices. He has consistently voiced predictions about AI's growing influence, previously claiming that robots and AI will replace humans in the workplace. The iconic Beckham couple embodies not just happiness but royalty. Girls, your decades-long crush, now 50, has received a knighthood, cementing his status as a king of English football and beyond. David Beckham revealed King Charles inspired his knighthood suite, a grey ensemble crafted by his wife, Victoria, Lady Beckham, for the Windsor Castle ceremony. He described receiving the honor for his service to sport and charity as the proudest moment of his career. Beckham, who has been emotional since the King's birthday honors, reflected on his journey. A young boy from the East End of London, born in Leytonstone and here at Windsor Castle, been honored by His Majesty the King, the most important and the most respected institution in the world. It's quite a moment. This is without doubt my proudest moment. Beyond football, he has been a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador since 2005, stating, "All the things that I do out of love. I do it because it's important." Yerevan's Pink City Gym, the Cascade Complex, a focal point for both locals and tourists, is poised to receive a magnificent upgrade. The reconstruction project for the Cascade has recently secured government approval, an announcement made during a recent City Hall operational meeting. Excitingly, work will soon begin on dismantling the existing unfinished construction foundations at the upper section of the Cascade. This marks a significant step towards enhancing one of the capital's most beloved architectural and public spaces, promising an even more splendid appearance in the near future. And instead of an epilogue, as the fundamentals of chess remind us, the only way to get smarter is by playing a smarter opponent. 13-year-old Armenian chess player Tigran Hambartsumyan has been crowned the champion of the Open Blitz chess tournament held within the framework of the European Youth and Girls Championship. This exciting news was announced by the Armenian Chess Federation. The tournament saw 288 chess players from 40 countries participate with no age restrictions. Tigran impressively scored 8 out of a possible 9 points, securing his championship title. That's much for this week. I'm Sona Tumanyan. Stay informed with ReNews. Good night.